When I'm in the ring, I have no anger towards my opponent. The only person that knows what I'm feeling and can feel my pain and my fear is the person standing across from me. But as much of a connection as I feel for her, there's still the dysfunction in me that says I'm going to win at any cost. Whether it be my life, your life, I'm going to win. I was about 3 or 4 when I first felt that something was different about me. We were living in Arizona, and one of the kids in the apartment complex was about to do some jump on a bicycle, and so the whole neighborhood was about to go watch. Something in my brain just kept saying, no, go to the other side of the street. That'll be better. That'll be better. And so I went right over to the other side of the street, and then my brain said, no, go to the other side. The other side is better. And my brain just kept going back and forth, back and forth. So I kept running back and forth until finally I was hit by a car and the bike at the same time. And that would kind of set the tone for the rest of my life. When I was 6 years old, my dad put me in Taekwondo because he was in love with the martial arts. I had a kind of dysfunctional father. He really forced me into the sport, and I just did it because I had to. I didn't really love it until I became an adult. And that's when I really started competing, was after I got sober. My father was an alcoholic, and I wanted to see what he loved so much about alcohol, what it did for him. I was curious. And so one night when they weren't home, I broke into the liquor cabinet and took my first drink. It was an instant addiction. One of my lowest points would be after I overdosed, and I was about 13 years old. That's probably the time when I felt that something was seriously going wrong. My mother had me in and out of doctors to try and figure out what was going on. I'd be walking through the school halls and things were moving, shifting about, and I couldn't distinguish between what was real and what wasn't. I was experiencing depersonalization, where I had no connection to myself, and I had no connection to reality. So it was almost like I was living in this dream world, and it felt like a prison. Every day I tried to wake up and I couldn't, and nobody knew what was wrong. I got to a point in my drinking and using where I felt like I just didn't want to live anymore. And I remember I was in the car and I was loaded, and I stopped at a payphone to call my dad, and he just said that he couldn't, but I could always go home. I got so angry, I hung up the phone and I backed up my truck and crashed into the payphone. I felt so alone and so abandoned by everyone, by society, by my family, and rightfully so, because they could no longer enable me. But I felt alone until I finally went to Alcoholics Anonymous. And at that point, I had felt like either I was going to die, and I wanted to die, but I was too afraid to die. I still had a little bit of self-preservation left in me. And so I chose to go get help. Sobriety was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, but it was only a small piece of the puzzle. It was a huge piece of the puzzle. But there was still my mental health issues. I've been diagnosed with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, panic disorder, GAD, generalized anxiety disorder. I try not to focus on the label. I almost use it to work for me in my life and not against me. I graduated college in 1994, and at the time I was competing in Taekwondo. So I was going back and forth from tournaments to school and trying to graduate. And then I got a divorce, I had 2 little kids. So it all came to a head, and the stress I just couldn't take anymore. And so I had a relapse, and I started going in and out of reality once again. I started with the obsessive compulsiveness once again, and that turned into an eating disorder. So while I was sober, I wasn't using drugs or alcohol, I was still finding ways to self-medicate. When my ex-husband came to check on me, he found me in the bathroom with the door locked. He got me out and he took me to a hospital. And within 72 hours, my whole life had changed. It was a miracle. Medication, I really believe, saved my life. I slowly realized when I got out of the hospital that it was about how I was going to lead my daily life. And luckily, I was already a fighter, so I was already exercising and working out daily. I had to lead a very structured life. I had to wake up in the morning and do the same thing every single day. And if I got even thrown off a little, it could set me back into a relapse. Fighting for me was a great outlet for all my dysfunctions. I really fell in love with the sport and started competing. And then at the age of 28, I decided I really have to start making a living. I wanted to do something that I was passionate about, that I loved. And I knew fighting was something I loved more than anything in the world. Because I always used to dream about being a fighter. Since I was a kid, I would envision myself walking through the tunnel to the ring and with my hands held up high, and I always saw that. And so I felt like, well, if my mind sees it and believes it, then what's the difference? When you take that walk from the dressing room through the tunnel to the ring, you know that you could die in the ring. You have to be willing to not only give up your own life, but take the life of another person. And that has to be okay. When we're about to knock someone out and we're punching them and beating on them, there's nothing in our head that says, oh, stop, back up. You might render this human being unconscious and that person might die or suffer serious brain damage. No, your brain is telling you go, go, go until that person is down. I don't believe I was put on this earth to beat and destroy another human being. That wasn't my purpose. I had something much greater in life to do. I founded the El Saber es Poder Foundation, which means knowledge is power, and we help educate Latinos in this country and in Mexico. That was my true destiny in life. Boxing was just a vehicle to take me to my true destiny. This is what's significant in life. No matter what you have, or what obstacle you have to overcome, it's possible. Anything is possible, and that you should never, ever give up hope. Because if I didn't have that, the hope that one day I would be better and one day I would be a success, if I didn't have that to hang on to, I don't know where I would be. The message that I try to give kids now is that no matter what anybody says, only you have the power to change your life. And I want them to know that there's nothing to be ashamed of, because there's so many people that suffer from these illnesses. I don't even like to call them illnesses, because to me, it was a gift. If I had the choice to give up my disorder or my illness, would I? No, because it's given me so much. And it made me who I am today, and it's given me everything that I have today. And so I would rather be like this than not.